And we're back. We're here again with Mr. Todd Ellis. We had a couple more questions we wanted to ask him. My first question, we talked a little bit about in the last segment about your career, as a broadcaster. And normally, when you have a former player or a former, athlete that comes and wants to do something on air, they're either an analyst or they're a color commentator, whereas you are sort of breaking the mold. Not a whole lot of athletes go in to do play-by-play.
That's right.
Talk about how some of the difficulties that you've had trying to get to that position, or some of the doubts that people have had about you, because normally you would go into color or analytics.
Right. There's a big part of that. And 20 years ago, when I was asked to do sideline reporting, that's kind of where you started in that minor color role. But over that period of time, they asked me to do more and more, which was to host the coaches show when Bob Fulton, who was in our play-by-play guy, was not doing that. He was getting older in his career. So Brad Scott, I hosted his TV show, not unlike this. Then they asked me to do color on television for our replay of the games. We used to do that, and then do play-by-play on replay. So I just built up over a period of time of them giving more and more responsibilities. And one time they came to me about it before, and I said, I'm not ready. And then they said, we really want you to take it. And then I really wanted to do it at that point. And so it built up over a period of time. I had an advantage because you play quarterback at a major university, you're the spokesman in a lot of ways. And Joe Morrison, unlike the coaches now, Joe Morrison played 15 years in the league. He didn't really talk to the media that much, and so they came to me all the time. So by the time I got out of school, I was really ready to try to articulate and be succinct. And then going to law school helped, obviously. Being up on my feet, training to be a lawyer helped me in my play-by-play. But a guy named Bob Fulton helped train me there over the last couple of months when I was going to pure radio, which is a lot different than television, obviously. You got to set the scene on every play, down in distance, all the things that are making that, and create the entire picture. Television's pretty easy doing play-by-play in the relative scheme of broadcasting.
Yes,
but on the radio, so I worked with Bob Fulton, and I actually would go to his house over in West Columbia. Bob would sit out this tray, and he'd sit over there, and he would play a game that I had prepared for the charts on, at least with the players, on the television, which was incredibly hard because there was unless there was a wide shot, I couldn't see how far it went out of bounds, what yard line they were on, all those things. I practiced for a couple of weeks with him before the first season, and it's like my law practice. It's always a growing thing. I'm evolving. You get your own characteristics. You find out where your swing spot is and where you can go in there and develop and build your own style. And I've done that over a period of time. And I'm a homer. I work for the University of South Carolina and IMG in Learfield, and I don't go do games at Utah. When you turn on our broadcast that I'm the play-by-play guy for the University of South Carolina. Now I call it like it is when we're not playing well, but if we're winning when I'm calling the ball games.
And then you talk about, you build your style, you develop, your kind of brand as a play-by-play. You talk about, obviously your voice. When you say, you turn on a game and it's Todd Ellis, not only do you know it because you're always there, but you hear your voice, you hear some of the things that you say.
It used to be that people recognized me because of my playing days. Well, now I can be in a bank and say, can I get that in 20s? And somebody will go, Todd Ellis. And that's a real thrill to me. One thing I've realized over the years doing play-by-play, it is a part of people's lives. I don't want to make it out to be bigger than it is, but most people remember things like they come up to me and say, I always, when the start of fall came, went with my father to the cabin and we went hunting for the first 2 weekends in October and November. We always have the games on. You're a huge part of my life. It's a relationship thing. I'm tailgating. I go with the same group I've been going for 20 years. So you become part of everybody else's tradition in the game. And that's I take it very seriously. I mean, it's, I'm never going and sitting in that seat unless I'm very prepared for it. Because I enjoy it once the game gets started. I'm like a fan in a lot of ways. If Debo makes the one-hand catch in the corner against Tennessee that I can't believe, I still can't believe him as a fan and a player who loves the game. But you got to call it too and get ready to make sure you're doing it professionally. So, but we take it real serious, really serious.
Well, it's interesting that you say that because I think that makes sense. You are a part of their lives. You think of some of the greatest sports plays you've ever seen. I mean, some of the things that come into my mind, Music City Miracle. Yep. You have Miracle on Ice. You have Stephon Diggs and the Vikings last year.
Vin Scully calling the home run of Kirk Gibson coming off the bench.
And just thinking of their voices, the emotion that brings out. The chills you get, the goosebumps.
You instantly go to that place again when
exactly.
you hear that at special times. And I'd like one of those great moments in a huge game for it happened for South Carolina, but I've had some small ones along the way that I'll never forget personally, and then people come up to me today and still talk about it. I can do a broadcast in Arkansas when we're playing the Razorbacks, and inevitably somebody there or on ESPN will come up and say, I heard this call is great, or whatever it may be. And I've got a great relationship with everybody on our broadcast team. Tommy Suggs is an amazing guy. He's been great to work with. He's in his 47th year now doing color. Is one of the second or third longest in the country. And then Douglas Adams, my assistant and statistician, and David Spence, our spotter. It's quite the process to put it all together, and we work really hard at it.
And I know you do the talk show with Will Muschamp.
Yes.
How has that relationship developed over the course of his time being here?
It's good. Right away, one of the first things, and I was probably one of the most things I've been nervous at, was the university called me when they were getting ready to hire Will, and nobody had not been announced and nobody knew it, and they said, we want you to come over to the stadium, don't bring anybody, don't tell anything, wear a suit, and prepare for a 20-minute interview with Will Muschamp. We're getting ready to announce to hire him. I didn't know him, never met Will. I really worked on my questions and went down and sat down and talked with him. You can tell right away he's an intense guy, but what I've learned from that time is he is a lot like me. First of all, he's the first coach I've worked with that's younger than me. That's one thing, but not by much. We were Georgia and South Carolina about the same time. He's an intense football coach who could be your friend. He could be a high school football coach, the best or the most intense that you've ever had. And he's also a pro. So I like talking football with him, strategy, X's and O's, where the game is going. But what I like about Will is he has his hands on everything. He's so thorough. He's an intense as a recruiter. He has a vision. And maybe one of the best things he does is evaluate talent. Everyone I travel with around the Southeastern Conference tells me, don't worry about recruiting. Will is going to get 10 guys a year that only a couple schools have offered, and then everybody offers them after Will offers them, because he's so good at evaluating talent. And I'm seeing that come to play already. So then if you can do that and get some of the top guys that everybody knows are the best in the country at their position, I think we got a real chance to make change. But Will's a great guy. I mean, it's football. That's all there really is. I tease with him all the time. He's got that gorgeous house out on the lake everybody's seen 100 times. I bet he hadn't been there a dozen times. And the reason is, and the only time he's been there is when he's taking recruits out there to see it. He's at that stadium working pretty hard.
And have you been fortunate enough to get into the new facility?
Oh yes.
What are some of your thoughts and opinions on?
Ridiculous. One thing I like about it too is people don't think about this. I'm not sure where you guys are from. We talked a little bit beforehand, but a lot of these moms, particularly in the South, they want to know where their son and daughter is going to be at all the time. Where are they eating? Where are they studying? How can he go talk to his coach? And when we were scattered all over campus in some ways with those activities, people sold that against us. It's not just that it's a shiny new locker room with the weight room and all that. It is, this guy can come to work here every day. He can get his hair cut here.
So you would say that the parents enjoy that, having that central
Absolutely.
hub kind of feel?
They ask about it all the time. So when I used to be kind of skeptical, are we just building a building to have a building being built? No, it's an important part of the recruiting process. And I'm telling you, I talked to a scout the other day that said between the Steve and Jerry Spurrier building and our operations facility by the Longs, by far the best in the country. Now, I've seen some other bells and whistles on the operations facilities that are equal to ours or maybe a little bit better. But they say the two of those combined together with the practice fields are by far the best they've seen in the country.
I think it's going to help to develop the state of football here in South Carolina, as I think it's already starting to go on the right track, obviously with Muschamp coming in.
Yeah, we've got $100 million invested in those two buildings, the practice field, and then or Gamecock Park over there. All that facility we built around that for parking. So that's just football alone. And I know the budgets keep going up, and we make more money from the SEC every year in a lot of ways, and you wonder where that's going to stop. But I do think that'll make a difference in bringing student athletes to Carolina.
Well, that's all the time we have here in the studio, and thank you, Mr. Ellis, so much for coming on again. And until next time, South Carolina.
Spurs up.